We're back. This time we're going to take a look at the Xindi weapon ship. It's a new retail release, one of the giant oversized ships. It's actually kind of cool. It's a little bit smaller than I was expecting. At the same time, it's relatively large. It's an interesting box. There's a nice picture of it. It's actually not the same colors as it shows in the picture. It's more about black and gold, which is kind of odd. The back shows a handful of the cards that come with it. This is another one I borrowed from my friend, so I don't have all the tokens and everything that comes with it. But we'll open it up and take a look at what does come with it. So there we have a look at what comes in the box. Again, this was borrowed from a friend, so the generic captain and all the tokens and things aren't here. But we can take a look at what we do have. The ship is pretty good size. It's bigger than you'd expect. For size comparison purposes, it's quite a bit larger than a tactical cube. So you get an idea there. It is smaller than I expected it to be, but at the same time, pretty representative of the size it was in the show. There we have our Xindi weapon ship dial. Even looks like a Borg spear on the dial. There's our maneuver card for the Xindi weapon. Surprisingly maneuverable for the size it is. With those white hard turns in there. It is a little slow with the 4 and the 3 tight turns being a red maneuver. At the same time, 4 is pretty average, but being red kind of sucks for it. Does have that 1 red reverse, which is kind of interesting. You wouldn't expect a ship this size to be able to do that kind of maneuver, but interesting. There we have our named weapon 0. 6 attack, 0 agility, 8 hull, no shield, which is probably its biggest downfall. Have a tech upgrade, 3 weapon upgrades, and a crew upgrade for 30 points. Evasive, target lock, scan, and battle stations. And our ability is when defending during the roll defense die step, you may roll 1 defense die for each hit or crit result rolled by the attacking ship. If you do so, place an auxiliary power token beside your ship. Basically, you're going to roll as many dice as they manage to hit you at the cost of an auxiliary. Definitely worthwhile on a ship with no defense. It is an optional thing, so you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but being that you have no shields to absorb those, unless you have something on board that can regenerate the hull, you're going to at least want to try. Auxiliary power isn't that big of a deal. Then we have our generic Xindi weapon ship. Stat line's exactly the same. You're losing 1 of your weapon upgrades, and you're actually losing the battle station, which is probably the most hurtful thing on there, for 28 points. Oddly enough, since the stat lines don't change, but the points change, both this ship and its named version are one of the few that do not use the standard formula of 2 times the stats to figure out your points value. The other one that comes to mind being the oversized Borg cube. This one's actually undercosted, the Borg cube's overcosted. Interesting thing to note though. For captains we have Dolem. Captain skill at 8, 1 elite talent for 5 points. As an action, if your ship is not cloaked, disable all your remaining shields and target a ship at range 1 to 2 that's not cloaked and has no active shields. Discard 1 crew upgrade on the target ship. Your ship has a captain skill of 1 until the end phase of this round. Pretty much it's to represent him beaming over and killing off a crewman. Pretty thematic, pretty nice. Captain skill of 8 is definitely something to be proud of, and his ability's not too bad. For elite talents, we have arming sequence. 8 points. Kind of pricey there. As an action, you place a mission token on this card. During the activation phase of each subsequent round, place an additional mission token on this card to a maximum of 3. While there are mission tokens on this card, your ship cannot perform any actions. It may only execute maneuvers with a speed of 1. When attacking with a destructive blast weapon upgrade, or your primary weapon during the roll attack dice step, you may discard this card and gain a number of attack dice equal to the number of mission tokens on this card. If you do so, discard this card. to only be purchased for a Xindi weapon. Basically lets you store up to 3 counters on here that you can then use to get +3 dice. It's nice for the extra dice, but at the same time you're paying a lot of points to get this ability. You're spending an action to start it and time to build up the tokens, as well as not being able to do certain maneuvers or take actions while you're charging up. In the end, it could be worth it for that bonus dice up to 3, but at the same time you're really limiting yourself in what you can do. You really have to plan ahead to use something like that if you're going to. For crew upgrades, we have Degra, 4 points. All of your Xindi weapon upgrades are 1 point cheaper, which is nice. When attacking during the declare target step, if your ship does not already have another ship target locked, you may discard this card to acquire a target lock on a ship within range 1 to 3. The ability to get your weapon costs at -1 is nice. The ability to get basically a free target lock really makes him shine. Sure, he's 4 points, and you have to discard him to do it. But at that point, you've already gotten the weapon upgrades for the discounted price, so you saved. You can, depending on what you put on your ship, you can already make back almost his cost just with that, and you're getting the target lock basically for free. So definitely an interesting option out there, especially if you're going to be running multiple weapon upgrades. For weapon upgrades, we have rotating emitters, 4 points. Attack value of 4, range 1. Disable this card to perform the attack. You may fire this weapon in any direction. This upgrade can only be purchased for a Xindi weapon. It's basically a 360 degree arc at range 1. It is a disable, so it's reusable. It's only an attack value of 4, but can protect you if something manages to get around behind you. Nothing spectacular, but it's mostly to keep people from getting in behind you. The range 1 is really the killer. If it had a range 1 and 2, it would definitely be much better. But it would also probably cost more than 4 points of that. Next we have Destructive Blast, 6 points. Attack value of 5. It's got a special range limitation. Discard this card to perform the attack. This attack targets all ships in a straight line up to range 3 from your ship. Perform 1 attack against each ship in the line. Each attack beyond the first is a cumulative -1 attack die. And an upgrade can only be purchased for a Xindi weapon. This is pretty much the first thing like this we've seen, at least in this game. I've seen it in other games. So you're basically going to take your range 3 ruler here and put it somewhere in your front firing arc here and draw a straight line. And everything that this touches along the way, the first ship in the line is going to get the 5 die attack plus anything you have from the arming sequence card. Then the next one's going to get that much -1, next one's going to get -2, and so on down the line. If your enemies are keeping their ships in a tight formation, it should be really easy to situate this so that it touches multiple ships. It's an interesting attack. I love things that let you attack multiple targets at the same time. For tech upgrades, we have Subspace Vortex, 6 points. As an action, you can discard this card to remove your ship from the play area. Discard all tokens that are beside your ship except for auxiliary power tokens. Immediately place your ship back anywhere on the play area but not within range 1 to 3 of an enemy ship. You can add attack during the round you use this action. It can only be purchased for the Xindi ship. It's an interesting upgrade, pretty much on par with the fluidic space one that the bio ships have, or the transwarp conduit that the Borg ships have. Next we have Self-Destruct, 5 points. As an action, target all ships within range 1 of your ship and destroy your ship. Each ship suffers 1 damage and must discard a token, evasive scan, battle station, or target lock that's beside it. It can only be purchased for a Xindi weapon. We've had several self-destruct cards in the past. It costs you your own ship, so you really have to use it as a last-ditch effort only. It's a 5-point upgrade that's a discard, obviously because the ship's blowing up. So you have to keep that in mind if it's worth it to you. It's an action, so you can make use of your movement to get yourself into range of multiple targets, then trigger this as your action to blow up and try to deal as much damage as you can to your opponents. This one has a nice bonus that it also removes tokens, so it can be useful for that as well. The one thing to keep in mind too is that it's all ships within range, so it'll also affect your own ships. So you gotta make sure that none of your other ships are within blast range. The mission for this one is destroy the Earth. It's taken right from the episode, of course, that this ship is from. And you have 120 points of Xindi, which includes the weapon and at least 2 other ships. And you can't give the weapon ship things like the Subspace Vortex or any other upgrade that will actually remove it from play. The Federation player gets 150 points, including at least 1 Federation ship and 3 other ships. So it kind of limits how many points you can spend per ship there. And then, unlike a normal game, this doesn't set up on a 36 by 36 table. It's actually a 36 by 60 area. The Xindi ships start here. The Federation ships can start anywhere in there. And of course, Earth is down here. For this scenario, the Xindi weapon gets a couple different abilities, which they give you on here. They give you the ability to roll double the amount of defensive dice for the ship's named ability, as well as double the amount of attack dice when using the destructive blast weapon on the planet. And they also mention that the arming sequence and destructive blast upgrades cannot be affected by enemy ships. This means they can't disable or remove those. And then any ship within a certain range of the weapon can't perform certain actions to limit them further. And the Earth has 16 hit points. If it takes 16 or more damage, it's destroyed. Only the Xindi weapon can actually damage the planet normally. Other ships only inflict 1 damage no matter how many hits or crits they roll. So you really want to concentrate on it with the weapon. The Xindi players win if they destroy Earth, or if they wipe out all the Federation ships and have at least 1 ship left. The Federation player wins by destroying all the Xindi ships. So almost a death battle as far as that goes, but with some alternate win conditions. It's an interesting one. I, of course, haven't played it because I don't own the ship, but it'd be fun for a scenario game and a themed game. A friend of mine's running a campaign. It may, the guy who owns this actually, so he may throw that in as one of the missions in the campaign, just to be interesting. There we have our Weapon 0 base. 90-degree front arc, no rear arc. It is one of the large bases, obviously because of the size of the ship. Same size base as the board cubes came on. And our generic Xindi weapon base, the same, 90-degree front arc. The ship itself is going to be really hard to show just because of how awkward it is. It's kind of mixed. There is a little bit of detail in there, but at the same time, they like slapped on so much paint. A lot of it is kind of filled in. At the same time, they didn't really do anything. It's just one solid color, and then they painted the like little bubbles on here, different colors. I would have done at least like the rings in a silver or something, or even the outermost detail, the armor plating in silver, just to make it stand out. Definitely if you're going to repaint it. My 2 real complaints about the thing are that the peg is off-centered, so instead of being like you would expect it to sit like this to be nice and centered or whatnot, it actually mounts right here. So not only is the ring not in the center, but none of the things are centered. It's really weird, and it makes it feel kind of awkward. It's also extremely heavy for the tiny little peg that they mounted on. Granted, these pegs are double the thickness, 4 times the actual size overall of the original ship pegs, but these tiny little pegs just do not feel like they can support its weight. Very wobbly once it's on its base, and you always feel like it's going to get knocked over. Might want to stick to just 1 peg to keep it lower on the base to kind of lower that center of gravity on it. It's an interesting ship. It's very massive sized. It's like softball size. You can see it in my hand there. And it just feels like a little too much for these smaller pegs. I would have liked to see them come up with something different for it, but they used what they already had. You can see kind of wobbles a little bit on there. Very unstable. And you can definitely see from that how off-centered the mount is. It just looks strange. I know in the show these rings actually rotated around the ship, so they weren't centered at any one point, but it just makes it look weird the way they have it mounted. So there you have a look at the Xindi weapon ship. It's kind of an interesting thing, amazingly fun for scenario play. The mission that comes with it looks really fun, has a lot of thematic stuff from the show. Some good cards in here to upgrade your other Xindi ships. The Subspace Vortex, the captain's really nice. And at the same time, a lot of these are limited to specifically this ship, so you have to keep that in mind as well. I think the really big lacking thing here is the complete lack of shields really is what hurts this. I've seen some people talk about using it in various games on the Board Game Geek forums, and that's the big complaint a lot of them has, is that the durability of it tends to go down before it can ever really do anything massive, especially when you use the arming sequence and you're trying to charge it up there and you're restricting yourself so you can't take any actions, which really hurts. Sure, you get those extra dice, but I'm almost wondering if it's worth it to save the points on the arming sequence, and instead of getting those extra +3 dice, if you can even survive long enough to do it, instead you can use target lock or battle stations to give yourself a little bit more quality with the 6 dice from the primary weapon or the 5 dice from Destructive Blast that you're already using. It seems like a trade-off there, 3 extra dice versus a reroll or converting battle stations. Definitely could go either way on that one. Anyway, it's a really cool ship. Not much here to offer if you're playing cross-faction. If you're playing Xindi faction, you definitely going to want to pick one up, but you're going to be one of the few, because without any real retail Xindi ships, the only way to get Xindi ships are to win the OP events or to buy them online, and they're pretty pricey. I really wanted to run a Xindi faction fleet myself, but the cost is just so harsh, being that you're going to want 2 or 3 of each of the different types of ships to mix and match and do whatever with. And this ship itself isn't a cheap one, but as soon as we have some retail Xindi ships out, I think you're going to see a lot more Xindi fleets. For now, I think they're going to be pretty much regulated to a special edition here or there, or die-hard collectors who go out and buy their own OP kits just to get the extra ships. Anyway, it's a really cool ship overall, and definitely interesting to see on the battlefield. I can't wait to see some people paint them up and see what they come up with for that. And that's about it for this video, and we'll see you in the next one.